Under the full moon, the hut at the edge of the riverside village was quiet except for the crackle of the small fire in the clay hearth. Shadows danced across the walls as Amanda moved with careful precision. Her fingers trembled slightly as she poured the last drops of the shimmering potion into the steaming stew on the wooden table. She looked at the empty chair across from her, imagining Olivia sitting there, laughing, sharing secrets like they always had. Tonight, that laughter would never reach her ears again. When the door creaked open, Olivia stepped in, smiling and unaware of the danger. "Amanda, it smells wonderful," she said softly, her hands folded in greeting. Amanda smiled back, but her eyes held a secret coldness. She invited Olivia to sit, insisting she try the stew first. As Olivia ate, the portion worked swiftly. Her eyes widened in confusion and fear as her body shimmered and shrunk. Within moments, she had turned into a small golden fish, her scales glinting in the firelight. Amanda scooped her up and placed her in a glass bottle filled with water. Without a backward glance, she left the hut, walked swiftly towards the sound of flowing water, and tossed the bottle into the river. The water swallowed the golden fish, carrying Olivia silently into the darkness of the night, leaving only Amanda's triumphant yet hollow smile behind. Once upon a time, in a lively village nestled along the banks of a wide, winding river, two girls grew up together, as inseparable as the river and its flowing waters. Amanda and Olivia had been friends since they were toddlers, sharing laughter, games, and secrets under the shade of palm trees and the golden sun. Amanda was clever and quick-witted, always devising new games or clever tricks to make the days pass with excitement. She was fearless, daring, and sometimes mischievous, drawing the admiration of other children who followed her ideas without hesitation. In contrast, Olivia was gentle and beautiful, her heart full of kindness, and her calm presence seemed to soothe anyone who came near her. She loved the quiet moments by the river, watching fish swim and helping the elders with their daily chores. Though different in nature, the girls' bond was unbreakable. They promised each other that no matter what happened in life, they would remain friends forever, sharing dreams and walking through every storm together. Every morning, Amanda and Olivia would run to the river, their laughter echoing across the water as they splashed and played. Amanda often led them into little adventures, climbing trees or wading into shallow parts of the river to search for hidden treasures like colorful stones or unusual shells. Olivia would follow, sometimes hesitating at first but always trusting Amanda's judgment. The villagers watched the two with fondness, noting how Amanda's cleverness paired with Olivia's gentleness created a rare and harmonious friendship. Their mothers too enjoyed the bond. Amanda's mother would often shake her head at her daughter's bold ideas, while Olivia's mother smiled quietly, thankful that her daughter had someone so lively to accompany her. Even as the seasons changed, the river remained the center of the girls' world, flowing with their laughter, secrets, and dreams, a silent witness to the joy of their youth. As time went by and the years unfolded, the little girls blossomed into beautiful young women, carrying with them the same laughter and promises that had bound them since childhood. But beneath the laughter, the girls began to sense the differences in how people treated them. Olivia's beauty and calm nature earned her admiration, the respect of villagers, and the attention of strangers who visited the riverside market. Amanda, clever as she was, noticed the glances and whispers that seemed to follow her friend. At first, she was proud of Olivia, happy to share in her friend's recognition. Yet, a small seed of envy quietly took root in Amanda's heart, a seed she did not yet understand. Their friendship, strong as it was, carried the beginnings of tension. Both girls still shared dreams and promises, but the first hints of rivalry lingered in the shadows. Still, the river embraced them both, and the village continued to buzz with the innocence of childhood, unaware of the envy that would one day grow into a storm that could change their lives forever.
One bright morning, the village stirred with unusual excitement. Word had spread that young King Chima, the ruler of a neighboring kingdom, would be visiting to meet the people along the river and witness their way of life. The villagers prepared eagerly, sweeping paths, decorating homes with colorful cloths, and arranging baskets of fruit and fish to welcome the royal guests. Amanda and Olivia, curious as ever, hurried down to the riverbank to see the king arrive. When King Chima appeared on his ornate boat, his robe glinting in the sunlight and his crown heavy with jewels, the girls could hardly believe their eyes. He was tall, strong, and carried an air of authority that drew the villagers into respectful silence. Olivia, standing close to Amanda, watched the king's arrival with wide, curious eyes, and Amanda felt a strange flutter of excitement she did not fully understand. For the first time, she realized that life beyond the village could be full of new possibilities and recognition, and that the river they loved so much could witness events far beyond their playful childhood adventures. King Chima moved gracefully through the crowd, smiling and greeting villagers. When he finally came near where Amanda and Olivia stood, he paused, captivated by Olivia's gentle demeanor and calm, beautiful face. He spoke kindly to her, asking her about her life by the river, her family, and her dreams. Olivia answered with honesty and warmth, and her soft voice seemed to charm everyone around. Amanda stood nearby, smiling politely, but inside she felt a tug of unease. She had always been clever and quick, admired for her boldness, yet now she sensed that the king's attention had shifted entirely to her friend. She told herself it was only natural for a king to be drawn to someone so gentle and kind. Yet the first sharp edge of envy began to cut into her heart. She forced a smile and nodded along to the conversation, hiding the jealousy that was quietly taking root. By the time the royal visit ended, the villagers were buzzing with excitement. Olivia's family, proud and honored, had been invited to share a meal with the king, and the village elder whispered to Amanda's mother that her daughter was clever, but beauty and gentleness always seemed to hold greater sway. Amanda felt a pang of bitterness but buried it deep, outwardly celebrating her friend's attention and praise. That evening, as the sun dipped below the river and painted the sky with hues of orange and pink, Amanda and Olivia sat together by the water's edge. They spoke of the day, laughed softly, and promised to always remain close. Yet in the quiet of her heart, Amanda could not shake the knowing feeling that Olivia had stepped ahead on a path that Amanda herself longed to walk. The river, once a place of pure childhood joy, now seemed to mirror the tension growing between the two friends, a subtle prelude to the envy and deceit that would soon shadow their lives. It had only been a few weeks since the king first visited the village, speaking kindly with Olivia and inviting her family to a private royal dinner. Now the entire village was alive with celebration as preparations for Olivia's wedding to King Chima began. Colorful cloths hung from every house, drums echoed through the streets, and the scent of roasted fish and fresh palm wine filled the air. Amanda helped where she could, smiling and laughing alongside the other villagers, but inside her heart churned with unease. She watched as villagers spoke in awe of Olivia's beauty and gentle nature, admiring how the king himself seemed enchanted by her friend. Every glance the villagers cast toward Olivia reminded Amanda of what she longed for: recognition, admiration, and power. Yet she carefully kept her feelings hidden, convincing herself that she was happy for her friend,
even as envy tugged at her thoughts like a shadow she could not shake. On the day of the wedding, Olivia looked radiant in her flowing white gown, her hair adorned with delicate flowers gathered from the riverside. She moved gracefully, her soft voice carrying words of gratitude to family, villagers, and even to Amanda, who stood close by, offering her congratulations. King Chima could not take his eyes off his bride, speaking to her with warmth and respect that made Amanda's chest tighten. The ceremony was filled with laughter, music, and the solemn promises of loyalty and love echoing across the river and into the surrounding forests. Villagers cheered as the king placed the golden crown upon Olivia's head, and Amanda's smile never faltered, though her mind was clouded with the sharp sting of envy. She remembered the stories her mother had whispered to her as a child, tales of clever women who sought power and were often rewarded for their cunning. A dangerous thought began to form quietly in her mind, though she pushed it aside, telling herself it was only a fleeting feeling of jealousy.
After the wedding feast, as the moon rose over the river and reflected on its rippling surface, Amanda walked beside Olivia, who was radiant with happiness. The villagers had begun retiring to their homes, and before the king led his bride into the palace, Olivia lingered by the river bank with her dearest friend. She laughed softly, speaking of dreams for the future and the life she would build alongside King Chima. Amanda listened, nodding politely, but the golden glow of the moon seemed to illuminate a desire she could no longer deny, a longing not just to witness joy, but to possess it. In the quiet that followed, Amanda realized that her ambition had shifted. She no longer wanted merely recognition. She wanted to be the one admired, the one celebrated, the one standing beside the king. Though the night was calm and serene, inside Amanda, envy had begun to grow into a seed of dangerous intent, one that would eventually lead her down a path of betrayal, darkness, and irreversible consequences. As the days passed after the wedding, Amanda's envy grew like a fire she could not extinguish. At first, she tried to hide it behind smiles and polite words, congratulating Olivia and even helping her with small tasks around the village. But every glance at the villagers' admiration, every whisper of praise for Olivia's beauty and gentle heart, deepened her frustration. She began to replay every moment of the royal wedding in her mind, thinking about how the king had looked at Olivia with such devotion, how the villagers' eyes had followed her friend, and how she, Amanda, had remained only a shadow at her friend's side. The quiet joy she once felt for Olivia now twisted into longing and bitterness. Even in her own home, Amanda could not escape these feelings. At night, she would lie awake, staring at the moon reflecting on the river, imagining a life where she was the one celebrated, the one admired, the one standing beside King Chima. Amanda began to recall the stories she had heard in whispers as a child. Tales of Mama Ija, the forest witch who lived deep in the woods and possessed the power to grant wishes, but always at a price. Villagers spoke in fear and awe of the witch, warning children never to wander too close to her dark hut. But to Amanda, these tales now seemed like a lifeline. If she could find Mama Ija, perhaps she could change the course of her life and claim what she desired most. The thought of using magic filled her with excitement and fear, a strange mix that made her pulse quicken. She began to plan secretly, walking along the river bank and through the forest edges, pretending to collect herbs and fruits while secretly listening for any hints about the witch's location. Each whispered memory of the stories planted a seed of determination in her heart, a dangerous resolve that would soon carry her beyond innocence and into darkness. By the time the full moon rose again over the village, Amanda had made a decision. She would seek Mama Ija and obtain the magic that could give her the life she craved. The thought of Olivia's happiness no longer brought her joy. It only reminded her of what she did not possess. Amanda told herself that she was clever enough to succeed where others feared, that she could bend magic to her will without paying the high price that stories warned of. In the quiet of the night, she began to gather what she would need for the journey: a small bag of provisions, a sharp knife, and a heart full of ambition. As she stepped into the dark forest, the shadows seemed to close around her, whispering secrets of power and warning of consequences. But Amanda ignored them. In her mind, the only thing that mattered was what she desired: the chance to replace her friend, to claim admiration, and perhaps even to take the place that she believed should have been hers from the beginning. The path she now walked would lead her far from the innocence of riverside childhood, straight into the hands of Mama Ija and the dangerous world of dark magic. Amanda walked deeper into the forest, the moonlight barely reaching the thick canopy of trees above. The forest was silent, yet full of unseen movement, the rustle of leaves, the snapping of twigs, and the occasional glimmer of glowing eyes reflecting from the darkness. She had never been this far alone, but her determination pushed her forward. Every step carried her closer to Mama Ija's hut, a place whispered about in fear by villagers. They said the witch could twist fortunes, transform fates, and punish those who were disobedient or proud. To Amanda, these warnings did not care. To her, Mama Ija was the key to the life she wanted, the power that could finally give her what she believed was her right. Her clever mind calculated the risks as she imagined herself admired by all, standing at King Chima's side while Olivia faded from memory. After hours of walking, Amanda finally reached a clearing where a small hut stood, surrounded by herbs, bones, and strange symbols carved into trees and stones. Smoke curled from a crooked chimney, carrying the pungent smell of unknown concoctions. She hesitated for a moment, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement, then stepped forward. Mama Ija appeared in the doorway, a tall, thin woman with eyes that seemed to pierce into Amanda's very thoughts. Her hair, gray and tangled, hung down to her waist, and her voice was low and commanding. "I know why you have come. You desire what does not belong to you. You wish to take another's life and happiness. Are you willing to pay the price?" Amanda swallowed her fear and nodded firmly, insisting that she could handle whatever was required. Mama Ija studied her silently, then with a slow, deliberate motion, beckoned Amanda inside.
Inside the hut, the air was thick with smoke and the scent of herbs and earth. Mama Ije moved with a careful precision, mixing powders, leaves, and liquids in a large, steaming cauldron. Amanda watched, fascinated and anxious, as Mama Ije chanted softly, words she did not understand weaving through the air like threads. Finally, Mama Ije handed Amanda a small vial containing a golden, shimmering liquid. "This potion will change your friend," she said. "Once it is taken, she will become what you desire. But remember, all magic carries consequences. Do not underestimate it." Amanda clutched the vial tightly, her heart racing with triumph and fear. She left the hut quietly, retracing her steps through the forest with the potion secure in her bag. As she emerged into the moonlit night, the river seemed to call to her, its waters reflecting the light like silver glass. Amanda knew that the moment to act was near, that soon she could remove Olivia from the path of happiness and claim what she had long desired. The stage was set, and Amanda's plan, born of envy and cunning, was ready to unfold. Amanda returned to the village under the cover of twilight, the small violet shimmering potion hidden safely in her bag. She acted as if nothing had changed, greeting neighbors and helping her mother with chores while her mind raced with plans. The next day, she sent a polite invitation to Olivia, asking her to come to her hut for dinner.
claiming it was a chance to spend a quiet evening together and catch up as they used to. Olivia, trusting and unsuspecting, accepted with a warm smile, eager to share stories of her new life in the palace as queen with King Chima. Amanda's heart pounded as she prepared the meal, carefully hiding the potion in the food. She watched every step, every movement, ensuring nothing would go wrong. The air in the hut was calm and ordinary, filled with the aroma of stew, roasted fish, and freshly baked bread, while Amanda's mind thrummed with anticipation. The envy that had grown in her heart now driving her every action. As they sat at the wooden table, Amanda poured the portion into Olivia's portion, pretending to serve it as a simple addition to the meal. They chatted, laughed, and reminisced about their childhood by the river, yet Amanda could hardly focus on the conversation. She was consumed with the thought of what would happen once the potion took effect. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, Olivia's skin began to shimmer, golden scales replacing the gentle glow of her natural beauty. She gasped in shock as her arms and legs shortened and hardened, her voice turning into tiny, high-pitched gurgles. Amanda held her breath, a twisted thrill surging through her, as she carefully transferred the tiny, glowing figure into a bottle of clear water. The golden fish shimmered, wiggling and darting inside the glass, its small eyes reflecting fear and confusion. Amanda's heart beat wildly. Her plan had succeeded. With deliberate care, Amanda stepped outside into the cool night air, clutching the bottle as she ran to the river. The village was quiet. The only sounds were the distant croak of frogs and the gentle lapping of water against the riverbank. She knelt by the edge and slowly tipped the bottle, allowing the water and the golden fish inside to merge with the flowing river. The current carried Olivia away into darkness, and Amanda watched as her friend disappeared beneath the surface. A sense of triumph mixed with a strange emptiness settled over her. She had done what she had set out to do, removing Olivia from the path of happiness and preparing herself to step into the life she had long desired. Yet, even as the river swallowed the tiny golden fish, a faint ripple of unease passed through Amanda, a whisper of consequences she could not yet imagine. The night was still, the moon reflecting coldly on the water, and the first step in Amanda's dark path was complete. When Olivia did not return to the palace the next morning, King Chima's worry grew into deep anguish. He searched the village and sent messengers to nearby lands, but no one could provide any clue of her whereabouts. The villagers whispered their suspicions and tried to console him, but the king's grief was heavy, and his heart ached with the absence of his beloved queen. Day by day, he wandered the halls of the palace in silence, staring at her empty room, touching the garments she had left behind, and replaying their conversations in his mind. Even the most beautiful decorations and the finest foods brought him no joy, for nothing could replace the gentle presence of Olivia. The king's sorrow was visible to all, and Amanda watched quietly, hiding the satisfaction and ambition that churned within her. She had expected relief or triumph, but instead she noticed the unexpected weight of grief settling over the palace, a grief that made her desire more complex, more urgent. Amanda had learned from Mama Ija that a second form of magic could bend hearts, and now she considered it carefully. The idea was simple, but dangerous. A charm that would make King Chima fall in love with her, replacing Olivia in his heart. Amanda began practicing the incantations secretly, whispering the words while walking along the palace corridors, pretending to mourn with the king while slowly weaving the magic into his surroundings.
She watched how he reacted to her proximity, noticing even the smallest signs of susceptibility, and adjusted her spells with precision. To the outside world, Amanda seemed a loyal friend mourning alongside him. Yet each smile she offered, each comforting word was a carefully calculated act of manipulation. The charm worked subtly, entwining itself with his grief until the king, almost unknowingly, began to seek her company more often. He spoke with her, laughed at her cleverness, and slowly allowed her presence to fill the emptiness left by Olivia, a dangerous shift that Amanda could barely contain.
Weeks passed, and Amanda's efforts bore fruit. King Chima, his sorrow softened by the charm, began to speak to her about companionship and loyalty, praising her cleverness and humor. Soon, he proposed marriage to Amanda, believing in her loyalty and charm, while still carrying the faint, distant memory of his lost queen. The villagers celebrated again, though their whispers now held caution. They noticed Amanda's ambition and cleverness, but none could foresee the full scope of her deceit. Amanda, in turn, felt a hollow triumph. She had succeeded in bending the king's heart and securing a place beside him, yet the victory lacked true joy. Something within her stirred uneasily, a flicker of doubt about the cost of magic and betrayal. Still, she pushed it aside, focusing on the power and admiration she had gained, unaware that the river she had used to hide her friend still carried Olivia, glowing beneath the water, waiting for someone brave enough to see her true form and restore what had been lost. As Amanda settled into her new life as queen, the glow of triumph she had imagined began to fade, replaced by a hunger for control and recognition. She no longer smiled as genuinely, nor spoke with the warmth she had once shown to villagers and friends. Her cleverness, once playful and admired, turned sharp and cold, cutting through anyone who displeased her or questioned her authority. The villagers, who had once celebrated her intelligence, now whispered in fear whenever her name was mentioned. Amanda imposed heavy demands, seizing goods, increasing taxes, and assigning impossible chores to those who resisted. Olivia's family, still unaware of her fate, felt the full force of Amanda's cruelty. She took pleasure in their suffering, sending servants to intimidate them and reduce their daily comforts, all while maintaining a calm, composed demeanor in front of the king. To outsiders, she appeared the perfect, clever queen. In the hearts of the villagers, she was a shadow of tyranny. The palace, once a place of celebration and laughter, became a house of tension. Amanda's demands reached even the smallest details: how the servants arranged the rooms, how the gardens were watered, and how the villagers' markets were managed. Even the king, under the influence of her charm, began to notice subtle unease in the air, though he attributed it to ordinary palace affairs rather than her growing malice. Amanda's cleverness now served manipulation. She encouraged fear rather than respect, making her rule unchallengeable. The villagers, once proud and joyful, walked cautiously, aware that a misstep could bring Amanda's anger upon them. Meanwhile, Amanda's thoughts often returned to Olivia, though not with regret or worry, but with bitterness and envy. She told herself that her power depended on keeping her friend absent and that any attempt to restore her would undo all she had gained. Even as the palace glittered with gold and celebration, Amanda's hollow triumph left her restless and unsatisfied. Her heart, consumed by ambition and envy, no longer felt joy, only the constant craving for recognition and dominance. She forced smiles when visitors arrived, controlled every gesture of the king, and delighted in the villagers' fear. The very river that had once been the center of childhood laughter now flowed quietly past her palace, a reminder of the friend she had hidden beneath its waters. Yet, in the shadows of that same river, Olivia shimmered as a golden fish, patient and sorrowful, her gentle heart intact despite the curse.
The stage was set for the next chapter, where a poor widow and her daughter would stumble upon the secret, setting in motion a plan to restore justice and break the darkness that Amanda had unleashed. Amanda, blinded by her cruelty, could not yet foresee the forces gathering against her, forces born of courage, kindness, and loyalty that would eventually challenge her power. One early morning, Tochi, a poor widow, and her young daughter, Chioma, went down to the river to fetch water and gather reeds for weaving baskets. Life had always been hard for them, but they faced each day with resilience and a quiet hope. As Chioma leaned over the water to scoop some, a flash of gold caught her eye. She froze and pointed, whispering to her mother. Tochi knelt beside her daughter and peered into the shallow water, where a small glowing fish swam gracefully. The fish was unlike anything they had ever seen. Its scales glimmered in the sunlight, shining like molten gold, and its eyes seemed almost human, filled with a strange intelligence and sadness. Neither mother nor child could imagine that the river had carried this mysterious creature from a distant village, far away from the home it once knew. Tochi reached out carefully, and the fish swam closer, as if recognizing a friend. When Chioma whispered, "Mother, look at it," the fish opened its mouth and, to their astonishment, words slipped out with the rippling of the water. Its voice was faint, trembling, yet clear enough to be understood. "Please, help me. I was once a woman, but envy has bound me in this form. Only a heart that is both brave and kind can set me free."
Tochi and Chioma were stunned. At first, they thought they had imagined the voice, but the fish repeated the words, telling them how Amanda had poisoned her and thrown her into the river. Olivia explained that she had lived in silence for many months, unable to speak or be heard. But now, as the moon marked the end of a season, the spell had weakened and she could finally call for help. Still, there was little time left. Within 7 days, the curse would become permanent unless the king himself saw her and recognized the truth. The story was terrifying, yet her gentle voice and pleading eyes stirred a determination in the widow and her daughter. Tochi, usually cautious and quiet, felt courage rising within her. She realized that if they did nothing, the injustice would continue and Amanda's cruelty would remain unchecked. Chioma, though young, nodded resolutely, her heart burning with the desire to help the golden fish, even if it meant facing danger. They promised Olivia they would find a way to return her to the king, no matter what obstacles lay in their path. The two set out carefully, keeping the secret between themselves and carrying the golden fish in a clear glass jar filled with river water. They traveled along hidden paths, avoiding villagers who might recognize them, and whispered to the river to guide them safely. At night, Chioma would sit by the jar, listening to Olivia recount stories of her childhood and the happiness she once knew with Amanda by her side. Each story deepened their understanding of the depth of envy and betrayal, yet also revealed Olivia's unwavering kindness and patience, even in the face of such cruelty. Tochi and Chioma's hearts were filled with determination and compassion. They knew their courage was the key to righting the wrongs done by Amanda. The journey ahead would be perilous, but their resolve was strong. They could sense that the river, which had carried Olivia away, now guided them toward the path of justice, and that their courage might be the first spark in a chain of events that could restore love, fairness, and hope to the kingdom. Tochi and Chioma had traveled for many hours, carrying the golden fish carefully through winding forest paths and along hidden streams. The villages they passed seemed ordinary, but the two moved quietly, aware that Amanda's eyes could be everywhere. They had heard of a wise old woman who lived on the outskirts of the next village, a woman known for her knowledge of herbs, magic, and ancient ways. Desperate for guidance, Tochi and Shioma made their way to her small, secluded hut nestled among giant mango trees. Smoke curled lazily from a stone chimney, and the scent of dried herbs filled the air. The old woman, with hair white as snow and eyes bright with intelligence, greeted them with a gentle smile. She sensed the urgency in their mission and asked them to explain what had brought them to her door. With careful words, Tochi recounted the story of Amanda's envy, the potion, and Olivia's transformation into a golden fish. The wise woman listened intently, nodding as the tale unfolded. She examined the shimmering fish, speaking softly to it as if recognizing its true spirit. Then she turned to Tochi and Shioma, her expression serious. She said, "The curse can be broken, but time is short. The golden fish can only regain her human form if the king sees her within 7 days, not a moment later. You must move quickly and carefully, for any delay may be permanent. This is not a simple task. It will test your courage, your patience, and your trust in each other." She handed them some special herbs and charms, explaining how to keep the fish safe and calm, and gave instructions on how to present her to the king without alerting Amanda. "The queen is clever and suspicious. She will watch for your movements, and she may try to stop you. You must act in secret, guided by your heart and the courage that brought you here." Tochi and Shioma absorbed every word, their resolve growing stronger with each instruction. They realized that the journey ahead would not just be about delivering the fish to the king, but about outsmarting Amanda, protecting Olivia, and acting with integrity in the face of danger. Shioma, though young, felt a sense of responsibility swell within her chest. She knew that bravery was not measured by age, but by the willingness to act when the moment demanded it. Tochi too felt a surge of determination, knowing that her daughter's courage and her own care could restore justice to the kingdom. With a golden fish safely nestled in the glass jar, they bowed to the wise old woman and set out toward the village. Each step carried them closer to a daring plan, a secret reunion, and the chance to undo the harm done by envy and deceit. The river, ever present in the distance, seemed to murmur encouragement, its gentle waves reflecting the hope and courage now guiding their path.
Toki and Chioma reached the edge of the village as dusk fell, moving quietly through the familiar paths. They knew that Amanda's eyes and ears were everywhere. The queen's cunning and suspicion had already made the villagers cautious. The golden fish shimmered softly in the jar, its tiny body alive with hope and anticipation. But even with courage and determination, Toki and Chioma understood that they could not approach the palace alone. They needed someone who knew the palace and its surroundings, someone the queen trusted but who would not betray them. That person was Obioma, the palm wine tapper, a man known for his loyalty to the king and for his cleverness in navigating both the forest and the village. Toki and Chioma sought him out at his hut near the far end of the village, where he was repairing barrels and preparing palm wine for the next day's market. Obioma listened carefully as Toki explained the situation. At first, he was skeptical, questioning whether the story of a talking golden fish could be true. But the fish shimmered in the glass jar and spoke again, its small voice pleading, "Please help me. The king must see me within 7 days." Obioma's eyes widened as he realized the truth of the curse. Though cautious, he immediately agreed to help, understanding the urgency and the risk involved. They devised a careful plan. Chioma and Toki would bring the fish to the palace under the pretense of delivering goods or seeking permission for routine matters. Obioma would act as a guide and guardian, using his knowledge of the palace gates, the guard schedules, and hidden paths to ensure Amanda could not detect their movements.
The plan required absolute secrecy, clever timing, and unwavering bravery from all three. As night fell, they moved into position, shadows slipping silently past lanterns and sleeping guards. Obioma led them through narrow corridors and service passages, whispering instructions and keeping a watchful eye for Amanda's spies. Each step heightened the tension. Amanda's cleverness and cruelty were well known, and a single mistake could ruin everything. Chioma held the glass jar tightly, feeling Olivia's presence within as a beacon of hope and trust. Toki whispered encouragement, her heart racing with fear and determination. They moved with precision, every moment bringing them closer to the secret meeting with King Chiima. The plan, carefully laid and courageously executed, set the stage for a daring reunion that would challenge Amanda's dark magic and finally reveal the power of loyalty, bravery, and kindness against deceit and envy. The palace was quiet that morning, bathed in the soft glow of early sunlight. Amanda, confident in her control, walked through the corridors, her mind preoccupied with plans to maintain her hold over King Chiima and the villagers. She did not suspect that Toki, Chioma, and Obioma had entered the palace under the cover of dawn, carrying the golden fish in a carefully hidden jar. With careful steps and whispered instructions, Obioma guided them through the service passages, keeping them out of sight of guards and servants loyal to Amanda. The fish shimmered softly, sensing that the moment of hope had arrived. Toki's heart pounded as they approached the king's chambers. Every shadow and whisper of sound felt like a potential threat. Yet they pressed on, determined that justice and kindness would triumph over deceit and envy. When King Chiima entered the room, Amanda was not present, giving the trio the brief window they needed. Toki and Chioma carefully revealed the golden fish, lifting a clear glass jar filled with river water so the king could see its radiant scales. Toki loosened the cloth covering the lid. The fish spoke, its voice small but steady through the water. "My king, it is I, Olivia. Envy cast me into this shape. Look at me and remember, your sight can break what was done." The king's eyes widened as he stared at the shimmering creature, recognition rising in his gaze. He stepped forward and knelt beside the jar, his hand trembling as it came to rest against the glass. A brilliant light filled the room, golden and warm, and in an instant, Olivia's human form returned. Her gentle face, soft voice, and familiar presence filled the chamber once more. King Chiima, freed from Amanda's charm, embraced his true queen, his grief melting away into joy, relief, and profound love.
Amanda, who had returned unexpectedly, burst into the room, her face twisted with shock and anger. She attempted to use her charm once more, murmuring the incantations she believed would regain the king's affection, but her magic faltered. The golden light surrounding Olivia seemed to reject Amanda's dark energy, and the charm over the king dissipated instantly. Powerless and exposed, Amanda's schemes crumbled before her eyes. King Chiima held Olivia close, his loyalty and love restored, while the villagers, led by Tochi, Chioma, and Obioma, began to gather outside, witnessing the triumph of courage and kindness over envy and deceit. The spell was broken, the kingdom's heart healed, and Amanda, left alone, stared at the scene with disbelief, unaware that her next actions would set in motion the consequences of her pride and cruelty. Humiliated and powerless after Olivia's restoration, Amanda retreated to her private chambers, her mind ablaze with rage and desperation. Her envy, once hidden beneath clever smiles, had now erupted into a consuming fire. She refused to accept defeat, believing that if she could summon a stronger spell, she could take revenge, punish those who had aided Olivia, and reclaim her place beside the king. Amanda gathered the darkest herbs and ingredients she had acquired from Mama Ije, her hands shaking as she prepared a potent, dangerous potion. She whispered incantations, summoning the power she thought would bend fate to her will. Yet, the more she forced the magic, the more it resisted, twisting and writhing like a living thing. Pride and impatience gnawed at her. She ignored the subtle warnings and pushed forward, convinced that her intelligence and cunning would allow her to triumph where others failed. The moment Amanda attempted to cast the spell, the room seemed to shudder with unnatural energy. Flames flickered along the edges of her chamber, and the shadows danced with violent movement. The dark magic she had summoned backfired, striking her with a force she could not control. The herbs and potions exploded, filling the air with noxious smoke and sparks of wild energy. Amanda screamed as the power she had sought to wield turned upon her, her mind clouded with fear and madness. She stumbled backward, knocking over shelves and jars, and her spell, meant to harm others, only amplified her own suffering. Her once cunning mind became trapped in panic, unable to discern reality from illusion. The queen, who had sought to dominate and manipulate, now found herself helpless, the very magic she had used to control others destroying her instead. In the chaos, Amanda's fate was sealed. She tripped over a fallen shelf, striking her head on a sharp corner, and her body collapsed into the floor, lifeless. The smoke and sparks faded, leaving silence in the chamber. The kingdom had been spared her revenge, and the consequences of envy and pride had claimed their victim. Outside the palace, King Chima held Olivia close, grateful for the courage of Tochi, Chioma, and Obioma, who had acted with integrity and bravery to restore justice. The villagers slowly returned to a sense of calm, their fear replaced with relief and admiration for those who had dared to defy Amanda's cruelty. In that moment, it became clear that ambition and envy, when fueled by deceit, could only lead to ruin, while courage, loyalty, and kindness remained the true forces capable of restoring balance and happiness. With Amanda gone, calm returned to the palace and the village. King Chima and Olivia walked hand in hand through the corridors, their hearts lighter than they had felt in many months. Laughter replaced fear, and villagers who once dreaded the queen's cruelty now came freely with gifts of gratitude. The golden fish's ordeal reminded everyone of the power of loyalty and courage. Tochi, Chioma, and Obioma were honored before the people, their names spoken with respect that would last for generations. The king rewarded Tochi and Chioma with land and a comfortable home, but their greatest joy was knowing they had restored a rightful queen to her throne. They often returned to the river, remembering the day destiny flowed into their lives. Inspired by their example, villagers began to live with more compassion, realizing that even ordinary people could change the course of events when they acted with kindness. Olivia forgave those misled by Amanda's deceit, ruling with fairness and mercy. Months later, joy deepened when Olivia gave birth to twin sons. The kingdom rejoiced, for the happiness of the royal family reflected the harmony of the land. During the celebrations, Tochi and Chioma were honored again, their courage retold as a lesson to young and old alike. The story of Amanda's envy, Olivia's suffering, and the widow and her daughter's bravery spread far beyond the kingdom, teaching that envy destroys, but courage and kindness restore balance. In the years that followed, King Chima and Olivia ruled with wisdom and justice. Their sons grew up knowing that true strength lies not in power or cleverness, but in loyalty, kindness, and integrity. Yet the elders by the river continued to whisper a quiet warning that even the closest of friends could have a hidden envy, so blessings must be shared with wisdom and hearts guarded against jealousy. And so the kingdom thrived, its people carrying forward the lessons of the river and the golden fish. From generation to generation, they remembered that envy and deceit, no matter how cleverly disguised, would always fail in the end. Peace endured, love prevailed, and the heart of the kingdom remained strong. And the river kept flowing, carrying with it the memory of envy, the strength of courage, and the promise that love and kindness would always endure.